Joining us this morning is Mimi, and Mimi, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me, Del.
How are you surviving coronavirus?
How am I surviving? I think I'm surviving like any other American out here today.
But you say any other American, and yet it has not been easy for Asian Americans.
Whew. No, it has not. And you know what? I just think that racism is, it's been deeply rooted into the American culture, honestly. And just like, if we take a look back at Pearl Harbor or 9/11, Asians, Arabics, Muslims were all attacked. And this pandemic is no different than that. It's a chance people are lashing out Asian Americans because they're thinking that the Chinese and the first breakout started in China. So they're putting the blame on right into Asians.
Does it hurt even more that this time the criticism is coming from the White House, where you see the president holds a news briefing and instead of it being coronavirus, he puts China virus in?
It really did not help that the president called it the Chinese virus. I think that is really poor leadership. It's not helping. It's causing people to attack Asians and attack Chinese people. And the crazy part is half of these Asian people aren't even Chinese.
I was going to say, I actually worked with a Thai co-anchor, and she pointed out to me the difference between Thailand and Taiwan in no uncertain terms. There are a lot of different Asian people in the world. So take a moment and educate the ignorant.
I think, it's the lack of education that makes people ignorant. There's a lot of different countries. Like if you take the continent of Asia, we refer everybody as Asians because the continent is Asia. But inside of Asia, there's a bunch of different countries. There's Japanese, Koreans, Chinese, Vietnamese, Cambodian, Laos, Thai, and so many more. And we actually don't even speak the same language. We don't have the same writing. We don't speak the same language. We don't celebrate certain things the same. So it's very poor education that makes people so ignorant.
Has anybody had the nerve to say anything negative to you?
Not publicly, not physically, but I have been attacked on Instagram and social media. They say rude things, really rude comments.
Does it bother you that the United States has been through this before with Asians, with Japanese internment camps, and then all of a sudden you wake up and here we are talking about coronavirus as the China virus?
Yeah, it's very disappointing, actually. I've thought that there is no right or wrong reason to justify why people act so ignorant and why racism still exists. There's no correct answer to that. But I do think it's just because of fear. And people just rather point the finger at somebody else, and I wish it wasn't like that. It would be a way better place if it wasn't like that, because united we stand, divided we fall.
There's a lot of sentiment among other ethnic groups that I went through it, therefore you got to go through it, and don't complain to me about your problems because they turned hoses on my ancestors and we came to this country as enslaved people. Are you getting a lot of support from Black Americans?
All of my friends are African American, and my workers and co-workers and everything. My circle is my children are half African American. I think the ones that are around me are not ignorant towards me, but it's the world is so much bigger. America's so much bigger, and there's still a lot of ignorant people out there. I just think it's how you are brought up, how you are raised, and to carry on with racism.
Tell me what the teaching moment is for you with your children on this. And by the way, they're not that far. We heard them a little while ago.
They're actually downstairs right now. I think they're well aware of the coronavirus, and they can't go outside. And my daughter is only 6, and she wears masks and gloves when she goes outside, and they practice washing their hands. I don't really entertain it as far as, being the Chinese virus, or, they understand that it comes from China, but they know that their my parents are Asian, and, they're well aware of both sides of the family, and I don't make it okay for them to make any types of, ignorant jokes. Because, I'm a comedian and I make jokes, but I don't go, there's a limit to everything. I don't go far to the point where it becomes hurtful, harmful, or ignorant.
As per the census, the majority of children being born in the United States now are biracial. And I'm curious, married to an African American, what are you going to teach your children about what their race is? What is the lesson that you're telling them?
My children know that they're mixed. they know that they're African American, and then they know that they are Vietnamese Asian. So we eat the food, we eat both side food. I think food brings culture together, you know, and they don't speak Vietnamese. It's actually a lot harder for them to learn Vietnamese. You have to be raised in a household where everybody speak it for them to pick up. But we share, you know, we go hang out and we spend time with both sides of the family.
And one final question before we go, and that is that I have a friend that's Japanese American on the West Coast, and she said something that really struck me. And she said she'd grown up in the United States, only country she knows, and yet somebody came up to her in the supermarket and said how well she spoke. And she looked at her like, what other language did you expect me to speak? Have you gone through that?
No, I haven't gone through it, but people forget sometimes that I'm Asian, or, you know, do you speak this? Would they be surprised that I speak it? And what I think is really unfair about everything that's going on is, you know, people calling people Chinese, and you're bringing the coronavirus over here. And there's so many Asian Americans who have never even been to China or been to their country, and they're really just American citizens, you know, and they have never even been there. And people don't understand that how expensive it is to even go back over there. So the ignorant comments when people make is they go back to your country. Well, America is their country.
I should point out, by the way, that you told your daughters to hold their breath during this interview. So can they breathe now?
I hope so. They're going to survive one way or another. They're going to survive this coronavirus. They better survive breathing in the basement.
Mimi, thanks for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Stay safe.
When we come back, something to make you smile, something to make you laugh, and something to make you want to see a television show that's coming on Lifetime. Stay with us.